It's funny, I came from World of Warcraft, where I was used to having dozens of add-ons, and I remember when I first started Final Fantasy XIV, the thought of having no add-ons made me really wonder if that would be a deal breaker. What playing Final Fantasy XIV made me realize is, I didn't miss add-ons, and actually enjoyed playing without them so much more. Thinking back to my experiences with add-ons in World of Warcraft, they were a nightmare to manage. You had to constantly check for updates. Sometimes they weren't coded very well. This would lead to multiple errors that could lead to game instability. Some add-ons were complete hogs on your bandwidth, causing latency issues. Whenever there was a patch or update, many add-ons would break, and God forbid if it was one that you depended on. That could very well make the game unplayable. This whole dance, it really kind of sucked. Here's an anecdote of mine. A while back in World of Warcraft, I was a main healer for my raid team, and on the patch day that opened up the brand new raid, my healing add-on completely broke. My UI and keybinds were all centered around the use of this add-on, and when it broke, my ability to play was just as broken. Luckily, this story has a happy ending, as I was able to find a replacement and set that up before the raid, but the amount of stress this caused me was insane. That gut-wrenching feeling whenever a new patch was announced never went away. I never knew when an add-on would break, or if the author of my favorite add-on was going to stop updating it. So it was very liberating coming from World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy XIV, and not having to worry about that whatsoever. However, despite there being no official support, that didn't stop players from creating unsupported third-party add-ons that run in the background. ACT is the one that comes to mind. I suppose the question becomes, should these actually be allowed? Are they harming the game overall? Will Square Enix ever make them official? Before answering those hard-hitting questions, let's look at what add-ons can do. I believe add-ons can be categorized into two different types: interface add-ons and gameplay add-ons. So, let's start with interface add-ons. So one thing add-ons are very good for is changing the way your user interface, or as Final Fantasy XIV calls it, HUD, looks. You were able to change the way the various elements are displayed, such as the party frames, the target frame, the parameters, the hotbar, etc. But I don't just mean moving them around. I mean changing the way the graphics display the elements. So, here is an example of that. This player basically made his Final Fantasy XIV HUD look just like a HUD that you would see in World of Warcraft. I have to say, I really like this HUD, and would almost consider using third-party add-ons to make mine look like it. It's so much cleaner and easier to read compared to what you can do with the tools that Final Fantasy XIV offers. I would hope that the developers behind Final Fantasy XIV see what players are doing with their HUD with these third-party add-ons, and then add that kind of functionality to the base game. They are already going a step in the right direction. They are adding some really cool functionality in Endwalker by letting us separate procs from the rest of the buffs. So maybe, one day, we'll be able to customize the elements more like how these third-party add-ons let us. Damage meters are another add-on I would toss into this category. They are essentially a HUD extension that will parse the battle log and add up all the damage the players have done over the course of an encounter, and then convert that into damage per second. This is an add-on that basically takes what players could do with a calculator, but it does it faster and adds pretty graphs. The developers are pretty laissez-faire about damage meters, so long as it's just for your own personal betterment and you're not using them to belittle other players. That's all I really have to say about interface add-ons, so let's continue with gameplay add-ons. So the big type of add-on here would be boss assistance add-ons. They have a real effect on gameplay, and players using these sort of add-ons have a huge advantage over players who don't. When you look at interface add-ons, they don't have any real impact on gameplay. Having an add-on telling the player exactly when boss mechanics are going off, giving timers for the different abilities, automatically marking players, and having them shout out when mechanics are on them, That gives these players a pretty big leg up when it comes to boss progression. Looking at World of Warcraft again, boss add-ons became so prevalent that the raid encounter designers started to create boss encounters around the usage of boss mods. This compounded the issue because now it wasn't even just an advantage to use the boss mods, it was becoming necessary. I've heard that ACT has plugin support that basically has some limited functionality with automating calling out boss mechanics. Now, with Final Fantasy XIV becoming more popular and big-name raid teams entering the fray, I fear that those plugins will become more and more intricate and eventually become so useful that if you want to raid seriously, you'll need to engage with the whole add-on dance. Personally, I think raid encounters are far more enjoyable without add-ons. You are more invested in the encounter when you don't have a bunch of bars and sound effects going off to clue you in on all the mechanics. Instead, you need to pay attention more and learn how to read the boss's telegraphs. So, the way I look at it is this. If ACT stays an interface add-on, then it's pretty harmless. If ACT starts getting more support for gameplay-altering functionality, then I sincerely hope that Square Enix steps in and does something to prevent that. I don't think Square Enix will ever just allow add-ons directly, because they want to keep parity between console players and PC players. I have little doubt that if add-ons were allowed directly, that you'd start to see players discriminating based on their platform. So, what do you think about add-ons? Does my view line up with yours? Anyways, thank you so much for listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a great day.